were wrong about him. And, if I'm Philadelphia, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that happens. Because these kinds of talents, they don't become available all the time. So it's in your best interest to maximize it.
I would love to see Zegras and Mishkov spend some time together and see what they can cook up. That could be a lot of fun to watch. And of course, good buddy Jamie Drysdale back together again, right?
It's a good situation for him. No question,
right
it's a
off the
good
bat.
situation for him.
Absolutely.
That injury for Forster, one thing I wonder if it does, Kyle, does it give Martone, their first-round draft pick, a chance to make the lineup? Now, Martone's a right-hand shot, but I saw some quotes online where he said he can play left wing. So, he's not your savior or anything like that, but when he was available, the Islanders called Philly and said, we'll give you our 2 picks for 6 because, they wanted Higgins. And Philly's like, we're not even listening. We're taking Martone. So if he has any kind of camp, I wonder if Philly looks and says, okay, maybe you get the shot at that spot that is open because of Forster's injury first.
Yeah, I remember Jet Lushenko had a great training camp a year ago and got a handful of games in with the Flyers before being sent back to the Ontario Hockey League. But maybe that's Porter Martone getting the chance right out of the gate this fall. That's a great point. Okay, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the one team in the East that are firmly in sell and rebuild mode.
One team in the league.
You think? Chicago,
they're not going down. They're at least stable, trying to go up.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Yeah. So we're watching now for Raquel and Rust. I've heard Raquel would prefer to stay in Pittsburgh. It's just that it's not his call. I've heard he's not averse to staying, but ultimately Dubas will make that decision. Rust has a lot of loyalty to the Penguins. I've heard there's a ton of interest in him. Again, it's up to, does Dubas get his price? Erik Karlsson, the bonus is paid. His actual cash is really down. We'll see. A couple teams I wondered about were Florida, no. Dallas, I don't know that I see it, but those were a couple I wondered about. Jari, does anyone look there? And I know everybody always asks about Crosby, and we talked the last pod about the rumors at the draft. I meant to say, it's so funny. Sometimes Kevin Weeks will tweet out a city, and I don't know the skyline. I have to reverse image it. What city is that? And I didn't recognize his Denver picture when he sent it out. So funny. Anyway,
that's great.
One of the things I was told was, and I've said how there's people in sort of Crosby's aura who want him to go, but one of the things I was told is that Crosby hates it when this stuff starts, and it actually makes it harder to convince him to do anything. So someone said to me, if you really want Crosby to leave, don't talk about it. Which means the Penguins fans are going to be all over social with it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, the campaign will begin. They'll have billboards all through Pennsylvania. Is this it for Sid? Where's Crosby being traded to? They'll take out ads back in Nova Scotia. All they can to make sure none of this actually comes to fruition. That's fantastic.
By the way, the other thing too is Gavin McKenna. We always talk about McKenna, the top pick, and I always say people don't want to use their offer sheet first rounder on a draft where Gavin McKenna is available. I had a couple of people tell me you should start mentioning Keaton Verhoff in the same breath as McKenna. That he played in Victoria last year, the Western Hockey League. He's going to the NCAA this year. But I had a few people say that, yes, McKenna is a stud, but this kid's going to be a stud too.
Yeah. He came, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but just all of a sudden launched onto the scene. And what a hit for the Royals, losing him and Cole Rezhny to the NCAA starting next year. So, well, with the way the Penguins are going, they could very much, depending on how much Sid has to say about it, very much be a team in the conversation for one of those two players come a little under a year from now. The Washington Capitals, Elliot. So they signed Martin Fehervary to a 7-year deal. Alex Ovechkin going into the final year of his contract. What are your thoughts on the Caps?
It was funny watching Chris Patrick speak to the media the other day. He's like, well, we tried to sign someone and we didn't get them. I wonder who he was talking about. Yeah, they made a big run at Ehlers. They wanted Ehlers badly. And, I'll say this. As I said, I thought Carolina was the team for Ehlers all the way, the team to beat. But I think Washington at least made them think. They took a huge run at it. They were really serious about Ehlers. I think they were prepared to give him what he wanted in the lineup, contract-wise, but obviously just didn't get it done. And they brought back Anthony Beauvillier, who was kind of waiting to hear what was going to happen. I also heard the Capitals took a long look at Jack Roslovic, who still is not signed. And so we'll see what goes on there. There wasn't a lot they had to do, right? They did a lot of work last year. They had a great season. They're a heck of a team. They Fehervary getting done. That was obvious to me, and it's a great contract. Who knows if they would have beaten Carolina anyway, but his injury really hurt them back there. Like, they were not the same team without him against a group like the Hurricanes. So I don't think they needed to do a lot. They were disappointed they didn't get Ehlers, but overall, still a heck of a team. The one thing that's interesting to me is they took some criticism for their Justin Sordiff trade. They traded a second rounder for him, and people were like, why are the Capitals doing that? Like, I don't know. I have not seen him play enough. I don't know. But the one thing is, like, over the years, like Ross Mahoney, who's their amateur guy, has done an unbelievable job of finding players where they draft, right? And so I got to think this goes back to his junior days. I think the Capitals are very good at evaluating players. So I want to see this play out. I know to a lot of people this seems really lopsided. Just the way the Capitals evaluate players, there's something they see here that maybe some others don't.
Alexi Protas, one of the great recent examples of just that, right? Looked a little clunky his first foray into the league, but man, not anymore. Key guy for the Caps. All right, the Boston Bruins. So welcome back, Sean Corrali. They signed Tanner Jeannot. They acquire Victor Arvidsson from the Edmonton Oilers. It's interesting, like, after all that happened this last season, Elliot, all the players that went out the door for Boston, like, for the first time in a long time, you're kind of looking at the Bruins a little differently. And part of that is because they went back to the terrific looking throwback era jerseys that will be their permanent look come next season, but also just the personnel as they've gone into. Is
that the reason?
Yeah, well, maybe one. But how do you view the Bruins as we sit here?